Mapisa Ngakula Special Advisor Mike Ramach
Oh, Jesus. Hello. Are you picking up the feed? I'm steady. Okay, so like this. Mm. No, it takes a bit. The front camera. The front.
touch on issues around, the border management, border control, and also the crime, the water issues, a whole lot of issues that has been plaguing this particular area. Not only this area, of course, just even a glimpse into how the province has been faring as well. So welcome to our debate. This is our SABC News debate coming to you live from Messina. My name is Bongi Wezwane, and we do have political parties who are here with us representing their own constituents. They also have some of their members here who are joining them in support, but also to try and make sense of some of the promises that the different political parties have made in the election campaigns. So these are some of the ground rules and how things will be working, and I do hope that we will be able then to cooperate with one another. So we're going to start the debate with 2 minutes each allocated to the political parties. I'll introduce them just now. 2 minutes each to state your case. That's your opening remarks. 2 minutes. I have a timer. Once your 2 minutes is up, we cut you. We move on to the next political party's representative. You will be telling the voters as you are opening up, why should they choose you? Once your 2 minutes is up, we'll move on to the next one. And then when we are done with the 2 minutes, then we enter into our debate. We will then, to the audience, will be opening up the floor for questions. Please keep your questions as brief as you possibly can be, 15 seconds at least, in order for you then to be able to make your point, ask your question, and do so respectfully as well. I know it's a debate, things can get heated, but we would like to manage and maintain a certain level of decorum as well. So feel free, as you are sitting there, even if you're wearing a different t-shirt of a political party, you are free to ask any political party here on stage your own questions. And also, once the floor is open for questions, I repeat this because I know it can be one of those points that where we see things get out of hand a bit. 15 seconds for your questions. And once we get a gist of your question, we move on because we want to get as much out of this debate as possible. And then at the same time, we will then be making sure that you are also heard as the listeners as well. So you can engage with us at SABC News_radio. SABC News_radio. That is our account on X. You can engage with us. Use the hashtag SABC News Debate. That is the hashtag. So if you're also here as well and you'd like to engage, by tweeting, SABC News Debate is the hashtag. So the different political parties that we have here, we've got the EFF represented by Lawrence Mapaulo, and we have Action SA represented by Diego Totse. ANC is represented by Florence Radzelani, and Rise Mzansi Petani Madzibandila. Mani Urisani is with the ELF SA, and that is the Economic Liberators Forum of South Africa. Lindy Wilson is with the Democratic Alliance. So, as we start the clock with your opening remarks, I will start with you. Mr. Mapaulo, why should South Africans vote for you?
Thank you, Bongi, and the viewers. The government in waiting of the economic freedom fighters firstly would like to say land and jobs and ending of load shedding. And I think we're going to expropriate land without paying anybody even a cent, and also make sure that all the minerals, water and other minerals, are the custodian of the EFF government. And we're going to make sure that we put in proper legislation to contextualize the custodianship of these natural resources. And also we're going to nationalize the Reserve Bank and other strategic sectors of the economy, and make sure that we create more jobs, and especially in building capacity to the state, because the state is reliant on consultants and private companies. Ours will capacitate the state so that we can do away with these tenders to be able to create more jobs to our people. And we'll have a massive protected industrial development to create millions of sustainable jobs. And also the massive development of African economy, and advocating to a move from a reconciliation to justice. because we benefit nothing out of this reconciliation. People only get poverty, unemployment. Open and an accountable government where our people will be free to critique the government if it fails to deliver on its promises without fear or favor. And we will stop this load shedding and ensure that the security of supply of electricity does not be hampered by private companies, which we see currently, because the ESCOM, it's a planned project to make sure that ESCOM collapse and the private companies take over our most important industry to supply.
Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you very much. We would like to welcome Lamula Mabunda, who is with the South African Rainbow Alliance, who's just joined us for this conversation. Mr. Mabunda would like to just make a note. You will have 2 minutes to make your opening statement. Once you're done, we then move on to the next political party. So, dear Ho, for Action SA.
No, thank you very much, Bongiwe. Bongiwe, our streets are littered with illegal immigrants who pose a security threat to the people of South Africa. Immediately when we get into government, we are ensuring that these people get out of the country. Anyone who's in our country should be here on a legal basis, should be documented. Secondly, we are dealing with ESCOM and privatizing, or rather freeing the electricity market as much as possible. So what this entails is that we get in, we fix ESCOM, whilst at the same time freeing the market and allowing other private people to come into the electricity market and compete directly with ESCOM. Of course, this is a system that will look like the cell phone network system, whereby you have Telkom competing with Vodacom, competing with MTN, competing with Cell C. The residents of South Africa should have the option of choosing who they want to purchase electricity from. We must not be imposed, it must not be imposed on us that we must forcefully buy electricity from ESCOM. ESCOM has up to so far shown that it's not capable of delivering electricity how it should, at least under the ANC government. Thirdly, we are insourcing security personnel as well as cleaners who work at departments, who work at municipalities, on the simple basis that comrades have been abusing the tender system. There is no need really for security personnel and cleaning personnel at departments, at municipalities, at state-owned entities to be employed under the private sector, whereas the government can employ them directly. Fourthly, we are dealing with the unemployment question. Part of how we are going to deal with that matter is that we are going to release all of the land that is currently within the hands of the state, release it for residential and commercial purposes. By so doing, we'll be allowed.
Your time is up. Let's move on then to the South African Rainbow Alliance.
Good afternoon, Presenter, and all the listeners here. I'm Lamula Mabunda, representing the South African Rainbow Alliance. We have promises that we are putting forward for all South Africans. The promise of SARA to the country is confident, specific and clear. We will put food on every table and money in every home. The SARA gear will defeat the national debt and bring job security for all South Africans. And how do we go about it? These are the promises that we give to our people as South African Rainbow Alliance. Competent and experienced leadership to lead us through the crisis and into recovery. Promises that we give to our people as South African Rainbow Alliance.
fight crime and corruption, and in order to make sure we support the food production, comprehensive agricultural support programs have been supported so that people produce
Your time is
food
up.
in a bid
Rise
to-
Mzansi is next. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Rise Mzansi.
Thank you, Bongiwe, for the of the goals or the ambitions in which the people voted for in 1994 under the current leadership, and what we hope to achieve at the end of the day. Some of the crises that we're facing in the country is a high level of hunger in the country, which we aim to alleviate with policies which are determined to be able to eradicate that. And also on the question of unemployment, our manifesto, which we launched at the beginning of January this year, we are aiming on the question of reindustrialization and also creating jobs which are sustainable, and also being able to put food on the table for people who are unemployed in the country. And one of the big issues that we're facing in the country is the unsevering collapse of the SOEs, as we have seen with ESCOM, as we have seen with Transnet, and also as we have seen with PRASA of recent. This shows that the leadership of the country has completely failed to be able to provide and be able to build a country in which all South Africans are prosperous. And also, one of the challenges that we're facing is the challenges of ethical leadership. As we have seen today in the news, one of the senior leaders of the ANC has been arrested, which shows that there's been a challenge in terms of the ethical consideration by the leaders of our country. And more importantly, to provide and regulate the way in which the private sector plays a role in the development of our state, which is important for us as Social Democrats to be able to find a balance between the private sector and also the state, in also providing jobs and increasing industrialization in the country. And also, lastly, importantly, some of the challenges that we're facing in the country has been the challenges of cadre deployment in government posts.
Your 2 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Economic Liberators Forum of South Africa.
Thank you very much. Greetings to you and the listeners. As economic liberators, our first call is to make sure that we build a local economy, because we meet here 30 years later. Black South Africans in majority, they own nothing, but we're told that South Africa belongs to all of us. But in terms of the economy, we own nothing. We are still observers of the economic activities. One of the first issues we are going to pursue is to push accountability. It can't be correct that a municipality get allocated money for water in an area like Bembe, where people have spent 8 years without access to water, in a place like Twinga, and they return the money to treasure, and people are still in their offices. They are not fired, but our people are subjected to thirst when we do have money allocated by treasure. We are going to challenge our educational system, because it can't be correct that you go to university, you get a master's degree, but you still sit at home. Clearly that the educational system that you are subjected to, it does not liberate you so that you are able to survive economically. We are also going to challenge the issue of load shedding. Our question on load shedding is who is benefiting from this load shedding? Because clearly there are companies that are benefiting, that are the ones that are behind the sabotage. So if we are able to identify them, we'll be able to root out the problem of load shedding. On issue of security cluster, as much as the security officers, there are many, but the SIRA regulation, it protects only the security owners. What we're saying is that if we're saying per security, a company can charge 16,000, we must also regulate the salary that can be paid to a security officer, so that they can be paid 3.5 when one company is charging over 16,000 per security. And it can't happen that after 30 years we fail to protect the majority of our security workers. Issue of borders control, we say we need to have a holistic system where Home Affairs, Department of Defense, SABC and Public Works are able to come up with a clear strategy.
Time is up. Thank you very much. Moving on lastly. The Democratic Alliance.
Well, quite simply, our country is in a crisis. After just 30 years in the ANC has eroded state institutions through cadre deployment, corruption and criminality. As a result, we no longer have a reliable power supply, crime is out of control, too many children cannot read and write at the required level, there are water shortages all over the country, our ports are failing and our towns and cities are in decay. These problems have killed the South African economic growth prospects and ability to create jobs. The DA has a plan to rescue South Africa from state collapse. We will start fixing what is broken in government by abolishing cadre deployment, firing corrupt officials, and appointing competent people with the required skills to deliver services. We will build a capable state to partner with the private sector and civil society to rescue South Africa. This is what we call a whole-of-society approach, and it has worked for us in every place where we have governed. The ANC state-led power generation model, the ransacking of Eskom, and a failure to diversify our energy mix has brought our economy to its knees. To rescue South Africans from the energy crisis, we need to get the state out of power generation business, diversify our energy mix, and encourage the emergence of private consumers or prosumers. Those are individuals who produce and consume electricity so that we can bring load shedding to an end. Political interference and law enforcement officials acting outside of the law and lack of well-trained police officers have left South Africans feeling unsafe and insecure. To rescue South Africans from crime, the DA will, to rescue them from crime, corruption and lawlessness, the DA will stand on the fact that we need new independent crime-busting institutions to ensure that those guilty of crimes are put behind bars and to devolve policing powers to competent provincial and local governments.
2 minutes is up. Thank you very much. Right, now that that is out of the way, you will get a last opportunity as well towards the end with your 2 minutes for your closing remarks after the debate. But for now, the debate has officially started. The ANC, you've just heard a lot of what has been said here has been that the country has been in regression for the past 30 years. But according to your vantage point, you say that it's been 30 years of responding to what you call the cries and the demands of the South Africans. Your panelists are not convinced.
Thank you very much, Bongiwe. We are indicating facts that are there, that indeed we are alive to the challenges that are still there. But if you move around the whole of South Africa, it was not like this. When I'm saying we managed to build homes for the homeless, if you can move around with the whole of Limpopo, you can hardly see the mud houses. Our people are now staying in villages. You can't differentiate the township and villages, things that were not there before, because our people were not really covered when it comes to service delivery. So as the African National Congress, I'm saying voters should continue to vote for the ANC. We are very much committed in terms of economic transformation. I will give example. When we say we are empowering, we are supporting black industrialists. Here in Musina, you do have Venetia mine, where they are mining diamonds. We export raw materials, and once you export raw materials, you export jobs for the people of this area. Just imagine if those diamonds were they were doing cutting and polishing here in Musina. Majority of people here in Vembe were going to have jobs. Hence, we are saying we are still going to make sure that through programs that are there, the ANC government, come the next 5 years, we are going to create more than 2.5 million jobs, of course, utilizing the presidential employment stimulus, where we will focus on infrastructure development, agriculture, and community services, while providing goods and services to our people.
I see Mr. Mapaula is shaking his head furiously. What's going on?
Thanks, Bongiwe. You see, I don't know as to whether my fellow panelists living in South Africa, there's sewage all over Musena. There are potholes all over Musena. There's high level of unemployment. when you move around, even where I'm seated, Bongiwe, I'm terrified because the hall that we're seated is like a snake can come out now here and bite us all. I'm just saying, please, they shouldn't lie. They must accept that they have failed. Any party like the EFF will be taking over and start afresh.
Okay, I think one of the things that, of course, the ANC, according to them, and I'm coming to you, Hodisani, the ANC says that they've been responding, and they say that for them it's been the various programs that have been put in place in the province of Limpopo, and according to some of what you hear from the ANC, they say that they've built houses for the homeless. It's been 30 years of electrifying households as well. It's been 30 years of responding to the cries of South Africans.
Yeah, it is said that 30 years later, the ANC is still using the same strategy of misleading South Africans. Every elections, they've been promising South Africans that jobs will be created, and the opposite has been happening. If we can't protect the current jobs that we have, how are they going to create other jobs? And as long as there's no accountability, under our leadership, 300 million was invested in VBS. To date, we have not recovered that money. Clearly, we can't trust this leadership because they can't hold each other accountable.
Okay, we are sitting here, which is, 16 kilometers, about 16 kilometers or so from the border, right? And that's where we've seen some of the issues. And I'm posing this question to you, Raisa Mzansi. One of the things that we've heard about over time has been how the porous borders are also complicating the system for South Africans. What plan does your political party have to deal with this?
Thank you, Bongiwe. I think on our side, we are very clear and concise on what we plan to do. And the challenge of that is on the question of management, not the immigrants by themselves. That at the level of government, even people have lost trust at a point that they don't even trust that people in the country are here legally or have the right papers. At the level of the state, there's been a level of mismanagement that has not taken effect at all. Also with other sectors in society where the ruling party is leading, they have not been able to reconcile or resolve those challenges. So the challenges of the borders is that when we take over, of course, when we take over in governance, we will make sure that people who are in the country are accounted for and documented, not just that everyone is in the country. And also at that level, importantly, to also open our borders for trade with other African countries. That is a very important aspect of our political imagination and how we plan to transform and reform the challenges.
So I'm listening to what you're saying. You talk about the challenges and you say that you are going to be changing the issues, there's mismanagement and all of that. Name one thing at a practical level that you will change, apart from ensuring that everyone is accountable for. Where does this management process begin for you?
The management process begins at the level of issuing papers for people to come into the country. As we know, we have a serious backlog of also other professionals coming to work in the country who have not been issued with work permits, and also at the level of people who are coming from other countries which are affected by wars, famine, and also some other crises. So if we are able to manage that, it will stop people from coming into the country illegally, if we are able to manage that at the level that it is needed.
And Lamula, one of the things that has been very clear is that at the borders, there's also the issue of corruption. We've seen sting operation after sting operation that reveals just how some of the officials at the border are also being accused of corruption themselves. And I wonder, what is the plan of your organization to deal with the issues of corruption?
Thank you, Bongiwe. The issue of corruption is a very serious one. And my fellow panelist here next to me knows that very well. Because the ANC, when it comes to corruption, is their bread and butter. And that has cascaded to the lowest levels. When it comes to border control, first, as Sarah, we are mindful of the fact that some of our forefathers and foremothers who fought the struggle lived outside the borders of the border. But even there are systems in place. There were also systems in place. They were not just living everywhere. There were camps where they were living. That was sort of control. They needed permit to move from the camp, outside the camp, and back, and they were accounted for. But with us, we have opened the borders in such a way that there's no more control. There's no traceability. Not the border post, but from other areas, crossing the river, in danger of being mauled by crocodiles. But we accept them, and as a result, we cry of unemployment. Where has employment gone to? It went to foreign nationals that are even undocumented, because employers take advantage of these foreigners that they don't have documents, they have no shoulder to cry on, they give them low wages, so they take anything that they give them, including in farms, in the restaurants. It's them that are running the restaurants. Not through the border post, but through other areas, crossing the river, in danger of being mauled by crocodiles. But we accept them, and as a result, we cry of unemployment. Where has employment gone to? It went to foreign nationals that are even undocumented, because employers take advantage of these foreigners that they don't have documents, they have no shoulder to cry on, they give them low wages, so they take anything that they're given, including in farms, in the restaurants. It's them that are running the restaurants.
All right. I'm going to ask us to pause for a second. I'll come back with the Democratic Alliance and Action SA. We'll take a short break.
At SABC News _Cairo, and that concluded the conversation. And all the important to note, as soon as we are done with our panelists in the school for questions, we are then open to taking some of the questions that you will have. So simply raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you as quickly as we possibly can. When you pose your question, please keep it as briefly as possible, because we'd like to take as many questions, as many comments from the floor as well, and as many of the answers from our panelists here, because it's effectively that we're about. So as soon as we're done with the two who are left here, feel free to raise your hand. We will get a mic to you as soon as possible. So, Lindy, one of the things that SANA says is that the issue of corruption is about not being paid well. That's how they are planning to be able to eradicate some of the issues that we're seeing in terms of corruption at the border. Is it really an issue about people not being paid well, or is it greed?
Oh, it's absolutely. We've got presidents and ministers who earn 2 million rand a year at the moment up for corruption. So we can't use money as corruption, theft is theft. And our porous border is a huge problem. I mean, we've gone through the washing line saga, where they intend to stop illegal immigrants crossing over the river. We saw what a disaster that was, consideration for the circumstances, appointing terrorists. We had no idea what they were wanting, so that was. We're also seeing a massive amount of human trafficking happening across the borders here, particularly by bridge, and that has been considered. And I think what we're dealing with here is not necessarily just Home Affairs officials being corrupt.
At the border. Is it really an issue about not being paid well, or is it greed?
Oh, it's absolutely greed. I mean, we've got presidents and ministers who earn 2 million rand a year at the moment up for corruption. So we can't use money as the excuse. Is corruption, theft is theft. And our porous border is a huge problem. I mean, we've gone through the washing line saga where they put up a fence to stop illegal immigrants crossing over the river. We saw what a disaster that was. No consideration for the circumstances, appointing tenderers who had no idea what they were doing or what the importance of that was. We're also seeing a massive amount of human trafficking happening across the borders here, particularly at Beitbridge, and that is very concerning. And I think what we're dealing with here is not necessarily just Home Affairs officials being corrupt, but we're dealing with corrupt police officials too. And we hear and have seen police physically escorting illegal cigarette trucks, human trafficking trucks themselves through to safety as they go through Messina. So there's a lot that we need to do. Number one, get rid of the corrupt officials. Number two, get rid of the corrupt policemen. Make the borders secure with a proper facility that stops them coming over. Number three, cut the red tape. People from Zimbabwe cannot come over here legally because they quite simply cannot afford the costs of the visas and the paperwork and what it costs to do the paperwork. Make it easier for them. If you make it easier for them to come through legally, then you're in a situation to monitor and see how many people are coming over legally. That already will solve half the problems. And then make sure that where they are going, you need to know where they're going. You can't have them cross the border and have no idea where they're going after that. The other problem we sit with is Home Affairs officials, amongst others, issuing false SAD IDs, South African ID documents and paperwork. That needs to bring a halt. And we have no one to police, and I'm going to use Messina particularly as an example because it is so close. Who is policing the situations in our villages? Who is actually going? What force do we have? What department do we have who goes from village to village, area to area, to find out who is legal, who is illegal, to check their documentation? That's not happening.
And I'm going to come back to that point. I want to hear what your party's strategy is towards this particular point, because it's quite an important one, especially when it comes to looking after the people in villages. Let's go to you, Diago. When it comes to the issue of, the corrupt officials, but also the fact that you are not being antagonistic as a party. I'm sure you've seen the criticism that Action SA has had to endure over time, that in fact you are a xenophobic party. Some people have labeled your party as such. And I wonder, how then do you ensure that you balance what is happening at the borders as well as human rights?
That we are a xenophobic party is truly nonsensical. We are far from that. Every South African citizen has documentation in this country, right? To say that no one must come into the country without proper documentation cannot be equated to xenophobia. I think as far as borders are concerned, what needs to happen and what we must recognize first and foremost is that the issue starts at the top. At the very top of the system, you have politicians who are corrupt, who are corruptible, who then make it easy for people on the ground to also follow in their footsteps and be corrupt, accept bribes at the borders and stuff of that nature. What we will do as an Action SA government is that we will professionalize the public sector from your HODs rather, to your municipal managers, to your director generals. All of these people will be employed on a meritocratic system basis rather than on a comradely basis. By so doing, we will employ the best of the best people and the most qualified people to do the job, who then can monitor the people on the ground to ensure that they are doing their job properly. And if people are not doing their job properly on the very ground, they'll have to face the consequences, be taken to disciplinary hearings and stuff of that nature. Ultimately, if they still continue their behavior, be kicked out. But the essential point is that we are not a xenophobic party. We are just a party that's saying, no man, let's be logical about this thing. You can't have someone coming to South Africa without legal papers, or coming to South Africa whereas there's they can show that they are coming here to do. The people that we must accept into the country, firstly, are those who are bringing scarce skills, those who are coming with work permits, those who are coming with study permits, those who are visiting. If your visiting permit says that you will be here from the 13th of April until the 17th, we must not find you here on the 18th. And it's really just the rule of law.
All right, Tejo, as then we've wrapped up some of the opening remarks there and some of the first questions. Remember, as the audience, you can be able to participate.
All right, you are still with us as we continue with our SABC News debate, hashtag SABC News debate. You are engaging with us on our social media platforms on X at SABC News _radio, hashtag SABC News debate, and you can then be able to post some of the questions as well as your comments. But we do have some questions I see from the floor already. I'll start with HM from Sarah. Please.
My first question is to the South African cabinet. How much are you looking for social grants as well? And the second one to the ANC cabinet, that we shouldn't left this country illegally. And it's under the assistance of the ANC, what I want to be with you. And lastly, of the state capture complicated people, how many people have arrested and how many of the comrades have been arrested and when? Thank you.
Start with
Thank you. We are planning to give 3,000 social grants to the recipients. And we see that is actually very actionable because South Africa doesn't have money. Unfortunately, money is not very important. But we also get the money to do that through business friendly atmosphere, creating business friendly and attracting foreign investors, lowering taxes, and with that we'll be able to generate enough to pay the 3,000, which is very achievable.
Thank you very much. I think you are just making a wide allegation, especially when you say it was assisted by ANC members. But let me assist you that the relevant authority in the Republic of South Africa is busy waiting for the case of COVID. The second question on the same how many people are arrested? The ANC represents a political party. Yes. We don't arrest people. You know, these debates should also assist us to give relevant information, not to mislead people with the understanding that they will vote. firstly, about the problem of the as well as the end of some question. I have some questions about countries and response that I will post in the second. As we continue to take some of the questions from the CABC.
Thank you very much. I only have one question these are the ones I think they are trying their luck. We have got problems of service delivery. When municipalities are taking money from the national fiscus and returning it back without implementing projects.
What you've just said, but we'll talk about that as soon as as the debate continues. I do understand we have another question as well. Where are we getting it from? The ELF SA.
Good afternoon. I have two questions. One to Action SA on the skills. You said you would be outsourcing these skills from foreigners. Why are we not addressing skills development within the country? The other question is to the ANC. You spoke to exporting products from the mines that are located within this country. But if you had to look at the job allocation and employment of these mines, it's mainly foreigners than South African citizens. How do you plan on addressing that?
Thank you very much. Tiago?
I think you asked a very good question. In fact, if I had membership forms of Action SA, we would certainly recruit you before we leave here. Well, in relation to why we would take scarce skills from outside the country, we must be realistic about the situation currently. The ANC has really collapsed our education system. Some of the scarce skills that we need in the country at this current moment cannot be found. We will not stop with the program of developing those skills, but for as long as we are developing those skills, we must have people at that interim moment who will be dealing with the issues that we need to be dealt with. So we will be taking in people with skills from outside the country in industries whereby we don't have enough of those skills within the country, whilst developing those skills within the country itself.
All right, next candidate.
Thank you very much for such a question. Of course, the ANC will continue to build capacity within the country. If you check, especially here in Limpopo, when you look at the improvements of matric results, 2022 we're at 72.1, 2023 we are at 79.54% with the increase on buses. We will also take it upon ourselves to really make sure that we encourage our learners especially those who are receiving bursaries, because all these government institutions got bursaries, to make sure that when they're in secondary level going to tertiary, they must start to study courses that will then be aligned with the demand of economic activities in the country, so that we don't continue to export raw material, because we will build our own capacity within the country.
All right, we'll pause with some of the questions. We're about to take the news. We will then continue with the questions on the other side of 1 o'clock. Of course, questions from the EFF as well, the Democratic Alliance. We will come back to those questions. Those hands are well noted. We will take the questions. We have to take the news to bring you up to speed with what is happening. But there's a whole lot of questions that I'm sure you have, especially for the candidates. I mean, one, when we come back from the break, we still want to know, and Lawrence, you raised this particular point, which is something that I also saw when I walked in here. If the party that is in charge of the country currently and wants to be brought back by the voters, how do the voters trust you with running the country if you cannot do a simple thing as cutting the grass around us? So those are some of the questions that the ANC will have to contend with on the other side of this. So we'll have this conversation as it continues after the news, and let's then take a short break. And Musa is standing by to bring us the latest in the news.
and he needs to answer the questions. Just ask him what to say. This is debate, and there is still 2% persons who will be playing and taking some comments to the radio. We can take them without questions, and before we even get back into some of the questions that were raising from some of the comments made by the representatives themselves. Let's take a question quickly from the SABC. Okay, this is a question from, in fact, let's pause for a second to the question. Can we take a question from the
No, thank you. My question is to the material. Why are you seeking appointed as ABC? As you are amongst those who are implicated in 300 million scandal of PBS. Check out the bring up that time. Why? What action did ANC or Premier Stegli Matawat took against you because you don't fit in public office? Thank you.
I think this was related to the elections. Thank you very much for such a question. Let me indicate to you that the allegations leveled against me were made in 2018. Today we are in 2024. And for those who know how South Africa lost Thank you very much. I want to appreciate that question. I was indicating that the question was relevant in 2018. Today they before. And I still retain my commitment to the allegation against me. So if you have evidence, because you cannot really want to get rid of someone raising allegations. Law enforcement is a problem that police. The most enterprises are posted and give the information that will become
Well, yes, I was. And I'll tell you why. Because one must be careful what one wishes. Just last week, this crime happened in 2018. Just last week, more people were from municipality. So I hope for the fact that she's not speaking out of turn because the arrests are still coming and we will chase up this person who was involved in this allegation and arrest people.
If I can ask that we settle down a bit. Lindy from the Democratic Alliance, you were shaking your head.
Well, yes, I was. And I'll tell you why. Because one must be careful what one wishes for. Just last week, this crime happened in 2018. Just last week, 3 more people were arrested, including officials from the Vembi municipality. So I hope for the MEC's sake that she's not speaking out of turn because arrests are still coming and we will chase up every person who was involved in every single allegation and arrest.
Society that's progressing are created by businesses, right? The state's main purpose has to do more with taking care of public infrastructure, ensuring that citizens of the country are safe, and stuff of that nature. Now, immediately when we come into government, we are removing policy positions such as policy positions that call upon business people to give 30% of their business to black people. But we know very well that that 30% does not actually go to black people, but goes to the ANC comrades. Secondly, like I said, we are going to distribute the land that is currently within the hands of the government for residential and business development purposes. By so doing, we'll be allowing for more people, more investors to come to invest into the South African business landscape and create jobs. If I might just in brief touch on the ABC's response here. Look, I think we must come to terms with the reality that the African National Congress no longer is a political party but a criminal syndicate. Primarily, the ANC at this point in time is concerned about filling its own pockets rather than being concerned about the people. The people are only but a secondary concern to them. Now, when we come to government, as actually say, we will prioritize the people of South Africa, ensure that we deliver the necessary services that are needed on the ground, and ensure that we arrest those who are corrupt. Thank you very much.
Create jobs, and how can she create jobs while they were part of corruption at VBS? Your name was appeared in that report for tearing down. Secondly, here in Fembe, we have a lot of crime that is happening, and you are the MEC of police. What are you doing as the MEC of police to arrest those who are killing people here in Fembe? Lastly, for Democratic Alliance, the DSA they will create jobs and fight corruption and crime. SAfm, how? Thank you.
Our people do not have jobs. We don't trust these people.
Let's have the down for a second and we get an answer to the question of the next. All right, let's take the answers to the questions that have just been received.
Thank you very much for the question. Firstly, let me disagree with the notion that it's not only a political party, it's a criminals. I'm disputing on the basis that ANC failures and companies or members who are coming from the constructed law, they are excellent in the place of the in terms of the how are we going to create jobs, because the money invested in the previous. I think the previous letter, it is not my intention it's good when you come here to give yourself time to go through a critical matters facing the
criminal
a criminal syndicate. In terms of the...
All right, let's allow the answer, please.
In terms of the how are we going to create jobs, because the money was invested in VBS. I think the VBS matter, I will not be able to entertain it. It is not my responsibility. For your ignorance, it's good when you come here or when you join a political party, give yourself time to go through critical matters facing the country, not just to come here and raise issues that are out of order.
All right, if one could ask though, the ANC, that it is not a matter that is not critical. Elderly people do not have their money. How is it not critical when people do not have their money?
I'm not saying Bongiwe, the matter itself is not critical. The matter is critical, it's receiving attention, hence you see the law enforcement officers, they are hard at work. But I'm encouraging members of these other political parties that when you have interest in the matter, make sure you give yourself time to follow it properly, not just to come and raise issues that are not genuine.
All right, Petani, do you think it's not something that is also, speaking to some of the challenges that people are faced with, and the reality that, people are asking a question, how do you create jobs when we still have this money that has not been brought back? It's for Rise Mzansi.
Thank you, Bongiwe. I think some of the challenges that have indebted our state is the rampant level of corruption and fraud in our country that has led to a high rate of unemployment. And for example, speaking here in Limpopo, the ANC speaks about industrialization, when in actual sense we must be speaking about reindustrialization. Because when we came to post-1994, all the industries which were in the former homelands were closed by the ANC government. All the former teaching and nursing colleges were closed by the ruling party, which has led into a very skewed economic activity in the country. You will see Limpopians coming home next week for Easter holidays because of the fact that they work in Gauteng, whereas there were job opportunities which were closed by the government.
And let's continue. I'll come back to the ANC with...
There's a question.
Yes,
Okay.
I will come back to that question, because I also would like to take questions for the other political parties as well, so that we get as much of an engagement from everyone as we possibly can. So if we can also just remember our questions also, if you have a question for other political parties, let's diversify this particular conversation as much as we possibly can. So the gentleman, very briefly, give us your, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Charles Zedre Mokwena. My question goes to African National Congress. In actual fact, I've got two questions. One of the questions is that, as we do believe that African National Congress is the leading on the governance level, there is an issue of the back rooms, which is the minor issue within the African National Congress. What we want to know, this issue, we heard it's been raised several times, but believe me, there was an intervention that was done by the African National Congress.
Okay, let's try to keep the question very brief, please, sir.
Yes, so my question is to say, from the intervention, how long you are going to take to resolve that matter? Secondly, there is a question or related to EFF. There is this issue of seeing most of their leader, Julius Malema. He's been seen most of the time representing the foreigners. Most in the particulars, those ones who are coming here in South Africa illegally. He's the one who's protecting them to illegally crimes activities that are happening. So we end up being confused.
Okay, what is the question?
The question is that why the EFF is failing to resolve issues that are affecting the people of South Africa, and on ANC solving it, but they are focusing on foreigners.
All right. Okay. Let's pause for a second and we take a short break. I hope you've noted the questions that were directed to yourselves. We'll answer them just after this. And I'm interested, this very question that's also being raised, what other political parties think of some of the questions. So if, some of the questions are directed to one political party, do note that we can put that question to you as well in order for you to be able to answer. So let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll get some answers to the questions.
We did have
Firstly, I need to decolonize your mind. That's the first thing that I have to do. Africa must be one. If Africa is one, for instance, let me tell you, if Congo, let me say Congo can deliver water in the entire Africa for the coming 400 years. Now, if we unite also as Africa, our currency will defeat all the continents in the world. Therefore, we are not going to be fooled by what happened in 1855. We will never accept what the colonizers have done to our mind and partitions to our country. There are two things that we must know. There's a difference between the crime and the people. That's the first thing. We don't have borders. Africa must be one. If Africa is one, for instance, let me tell you, if Congo, let me say Congo can deliver water in the entire of Africa for the coming 400 years. Now, if we unite also as Africa, our currency will defeat all the continents in the world. Therefore, we are not going to be fooled by what happened in 1855. We will never accept what the colonizers has done to our mind and partitions to our country. There are two things that you must know. There's a difference between the crime and people crossing the border. You know, we don't have borders. I'm listening to you all here. Go here, there's no fence. All over, people are coming in and out. Now, you are wasting your time talking about borders because the ANC, even if they don't agree with us, they've already automatically and practically opened doors for all. And as I speak right now, Namibia and Botswana, there's no longer issues of we are one. Seated here, I've got a son-in-law. Seated here, you are seated. Bondi, my mother, she's from Botswana. My father is a South African. My son-in-law is a Kenyan. My daughter-in-law is a Zimbabwean. You seated here, you've got families in Uganda. You've got families in Zambia. All of you are not from South Africa. We are from the middle of Africa. Not today because the colonialist mentality have destroyed you. You don't know your brothers. And the people that you are chasing out of the borders, they are like you. Their nose is like you. Their mouth is like you. Their color is like you. But you forget about the white people who came to this country. Thank you very much.
The ANC, very quickly, let's take your answers very briefly to the questions and then we move on. Okay, let's settle down. The ANC, very briefly answer the questions.
Bongiwe, on the issue of the border management, As the ANC, we said we'll defend and advance freedom and democracy and promote and defend the rights of all citizens of Africa. We will intensify the war on crime and make communities safe. Right now, as we speak, hence I will keep on saying, on matters that concern national interest, we encourage people to really take keen interest. The national government, through the Department of Home Affairs, have rounded public participation in terms of the overhauling of the immigration system. The draft white paper on citizenship, immigration and refugee protection has been it's waiting for the signing by the president to become a law.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come to the work of the Border Management Agency, the third quarter, just some past few months, during the festive season, 1,247 people were deported, those who were found to be on the wrong side of the law. And 25,000 kg of agricultural products were refused entry in the country. Those are some of the successes that the border management are doing. 1,662 undocumented migrants were apprehended and processed. Coming to the issue of industrialization, there was that question,
Yes.
Bongiwe, that was asked to say, as the ANC, what is it that we are going to do? Of course, we said we'll build our industries for an inclusive economy. You have just said you are governing. Why not cutting the grasses? Hence we say we will keep on giving support to
But you can't keep on giving support. The grass outside is not cut. Let's just talk about the, I mean, it really looks like it's not kept. So what support would you, I'm really trying to understand, what support would you require to cut the grass?
We are in Musina town. The municipality of Musina is serving almost 192 villages.
Mm-hmm.
So the place that you have chosen, you might find that in terms of the implementation program, they are still coming because they have to service all the areas. Hence we speak about inclusive economy. We can't continue to exclude rural villages, those who were really not considered during the apartheid regime,
Okay.
those who were not benefiting. So we talk about continuing because we are a political party in government.
Okay, so do you agree with that, Orisani?
No, I think we need to be honest in terms of our engagement. South Africans are not interested in poking holes on what have happened for the past 30 years. Their interest is what must be done now. Because people are living in poverty now, people do not have an access to water now as we're speaking in them. So what we're saying now, we need to provide solutions. And what we're saying, where we're staying now in Messina, you have over 43,000 households. And every household in Messina is buying a simple mealie meal. Why are we not having a factory that produces mealie meal? Every one of you here, you are buying cooking oil. Why are we not having a factory that produces cooking oil? The reality is, no, I'm glad that the ANC does not have confidence in itself. We are going to take over and we'll do it. Our point is that from where we're sitting,
Okay, let's try to settle down so we get to hear the finalization of his response. Yeah.
No, as I'm
Continue, Olusani.
No, thank you very much.
Okay, can we please just request that you settle down? Say we'll give you a chance. You will ask.
Our point is that
You will respond. Please, let's not heckle him. Let's give him a chance
our
to
point
respond.
is that there's no one who's coming to create jobs for black people. Reality is that as black people, we need to organize ourselves and create jobs for ourselves. Because those who are doing well currently, if you have to check the Indian community and the white community, they've built their own economy. As black people, we have built nothing for the past 30 years. And we need to organize ourselves and create our own economy. Thank you very much.
All right, let's then take a question. I see we've got, I'm being directed, Rise Mzansi. Yes, you've actually had your hand up for quite some time, so.
1, 2. I'm not going to, sorry. I'm not going
All
to.
right,
I'm
we
not
can-
going to talk about the ANC, DA, and EFF. You guys have been there. You are siblings that just keep on fighting, but do the same thing. So you need to step off the game and give others a chance. So I'm going to ask a question first on Rise Mzansi. You guys talk about unemployment reindustrialization. How do you plan on doing this? To Action SA, how do you plan on stopping the abuse of tender system? How do we know that you don't want to take this abuse of tender system to yourself and have the benefit? And lastly, to Sarah, you mentioned about border control and the traceability of foreigners. How are you going to implement such process? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's take the questions, the answers briefly, and then we move on to more questions. Rise Mzansi. The first question was yours.
Thank you for that question. And just to add on the of reindustrialization, as I was mentioning earlier, that in the early 2000s, the government of the ANC closed down teachers and nursing colleges in former homelands and also closed down industries. So in that sense, they cannot speak about industrialization, whereas they were responsible for the deindustrialization of our country. And in a sense, it has created a skewed economy in which almost everyone migrates to Gauteng to be able to get economic opportunities. So our solution is based on the fact that we must create opportunities and industries beyond Gauteng. And at the point where
Petani, the question is how.
Yes.
The question is how.
Okay.
Not what you must do, how.
Okay, let me respond to the how. So the how is the fact that we must create economies or industries which are active beyond Gauteng, beyond Johannesburg, beyond Cape Town, or beyond Durban, in areas which were formerly Bantustan areas where there are economic opportunities. For example, in the area of where I come from, there's a very good perspective of creating an agricultural industrial economy in which we can use agriculture as a basis on which the economy can be able to function.
Okay. Abuse of the tender system, your response, Action SA?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's quite important that we mention that Action SA is led by Mr. Herman Mashaba, who is a self-made billionaire, a man who has never stolen a cent from the government, a man who could have, if he wanted to be corrupt, he could have a long time ago gave some mayor or some HOD a bag of money and could have gotten a tender, because that's how these people behave. As the MEC sitting here next to me right now, there's a huge possibility that from here she might be going to collect money from somewhere, so a tender can be allocated to someone. That is the reality of South Africa as things stand. What we are going to do to deal with the corruption linked to tender system in South Africa, like I said, we are going to professionalize the public administration, ensure that we hire the best qualified people to head our departments, to head our municipalities, to head our state-owned entities, from your director generals to your municipal managers, and so on and forth.
All right.
We are as well going to, just lastly, we are going to come up with an independent crime-busting unit, such as the one that we once had in South Africa, if you recall, that was dismantled during Jacob Zuma's time. The Scorpion did good work in society. They were busting crime, but because they were busting crime, they got rid of them. So
Okay.
we create such a unit so we can deal with crime.
Let me give Sarah quickly, and then I'll come back to the ANC for a response. Sarah, are you able to respond quickly?
Thank you, Bongiwe. Thank you, Bongiwe.
You can go ahead.
It
You
is
can
well,
go ahead,
it
Boma
is
Bunda.
well.
Go ahead, Boma
When
Bunda.
we wake up, we will be up there and you will be down. First, when it comes to border control,
All right, let's not heckle him. Let's allow his response, please.
when it comes to border control, the function of Border Management Authority is to monitor and regulate the movement of people, movement of animals, and movement of vehicles across the border. Something that is not done properly now. The law is there but it's not being implemented. Why it's not implemented? Because of corruption and greed. What we're going to do as SARA is to make sure we close the holes that enable corruption and fraudulent activities. We will make sure there are no contrabands that cross our borders.
How?
By empowering the police, the South African National Defence Force, they have to go back to their original function of patrolling the borders.
They were patrolling the borders, yet we were still seeing issues at the borders. So how?
Yes, you think they are patrolling the borders, but they are not.
No, I say previously, the reason we're asking the follow-up question is that previously we did see this initiative that you're talking about being implemented at the border. We still had problems. So how do you ensure that those you are tasking with patrolling the border do what you are saying?
One, they were patrolling, yes, but the level of the illegal immigrants now is far much higher. It cannot be compared than before. And what we're going to do to make sure the Border Management Authority do their job is to ensure that those that are caught, they get arrested. By getting arrested, and make sure that they are given effective sentences, that they won't do it again.
Let's give the ANC very quickly a chance to respond, and then, if I may please ask that we settle down, because we'd like to get many questions. So let's get the ANC briefly respond, and then we move on.
Yeah, Bongi, when the Border Management Agency was appointed, it was to try and deal with some of the weaknesses within our borders. And we have already started to see some successes in terms of the work that they are doing. Hence, I was also giving some of the figures here. Let me go to the issues of the back rooms that is affecting the community of Musina, especially here in town. This is the matter that has reached us as the African National Congress. And because we are the leader of society, we said to the people, we have solutions to all their problems. The ANC is attending to the matter, and we are not going to do it in such a way that our people will have problems.
Your question, okay, before we, okay, let's just try to settle down. The question was not answered. The question is not answered. You were asked how long to go. The question was, what are you doing? It was how long to go.
In fact, Bongiwe, the leadership of the ANC will be in Musina on Monday. The matter will be resolved to come next week.
Okay, next week, you heard. Right.
I think there was another issue, especially on the issue of areas where there are no water in Vembe.
Yes, we're gonna come to we'll come to the water conversation in just a moment. But there was, of course, the big problem around the tender system and some of what you've had said about you. Would you like to respond? 10 seconds.
Yes. Thank you very much, Bongiwe. I think people should understand when it comes to tendering processes, there are supply chain management regulations that officials will have to run with the process.
But they've been violated for a very long time.
Violation, Bongi, where there are consequences management. Those who are violating the laws that are there are consequences management. Once you are found to be on the wrong side of the law, there are many officials who are arrested based on the contravention of some of the regulations and the laws that are there. So you can't just wake up because you are given the responsibility, like Action SA was saying, the MEC, addressing me as the MEC. MECs have got nothing to do with the supply chain management processes that get to appoint the service provider.
All right. I wonder though, okay, when we come back from the break, I'd like to get a response from the EFF, get a response from the Democratic Alliance, that is it really what is taking place on the ground, that we do not see political interference at the level of some of the supply chain, processes. But let's get that response from you, Lindy, as well as Lawrence, when we come back from this. Mansfield Multipurpose Center in Messina and Limpopo. We continue with our elections debate. Lindy, let me come back to you briefly. Is political interference still an issue when it comes to some of the supply chain processes?
Oh, absolutely it is. And I mean, we have evidence of that every day. And it kind of floors me that an MEC could say that they have no influence over supply chain management. Well, the MEC is the accounting officer for whichever department they represent. Straightforward. You either are accountable or you're not. Then if you're not accountable, don't be the MEC. You are the accounting officer for every department that you oversee. That includes overseeing, monitoring and evaluating the tender process. So quite frankly, that floors me. But there are several, and we'll come back to it with regards to border management and creation of jobs, because I think those are important issues we can talk about just now.
Very important. And Lawrence, briefly, 20 seconds for you. Is political
Thank you very
interference
much. I think, Bongiwe, as we speak right now, people are burying their own parents because of tendering system. People are behind in the prisons because of this tendering system. The reason why our children or our kids don't go to school is because the ANC government, they've made it sure that those who went to school are not at par with those that are business. Let me give you an example. If you have a CPRO certificate of business and you have a certificate of IT, the ANC government, because of tendering, will not imply those that are educated. They will employ someone who doesn't have even standard 5 and give him that tender because he can't count money. So they count with him and take part of the money. They are living, it's a milking cow, especially now during the last quarter of the year. It's a physical dumping of the ANC.
Let me come to you, Wurisani. According to the 2023-24 third quarter crime statistics, Messina Police Station in position 18 when it comes to the top 30 most problematic jurisdictions with a high number of sexual offenses in the country. It is a huge issue. What does your political party do about it in 10 seconds?
No, I think what we need to do, those cases need to be prioritized, and we need to make sure that we have a special unit that focuses specifically on the rape cases of gender-based violence. But what I wanted to also forward on the issue of tender is to say, as we are sitting now, just to fix a borehole in Vembe, it cost over 120,000 to the municipality. But to do a borehole costs less than 100,000 if we are doing it as a private person. But to fix it, as we are speaking, they are paying over 120,000. So what we are saying, we need to create a gazette where all the services that need to be procured by government, we are able to price them so that we are able to control. Because clearly, Municipal Finance Management Act, it has not been able to curb corruption.
All right. Let's come to you very briefly.
Oh, thank you. My first question will go to ELF.
Let's make it quickly. Let's make it quick.
Can I continue?
Yes, let's make the question quick.
Thank you, President of ELF. Can you please briefly outline your plan or policies on how to control illegal foreign influx in SA? Second question is, you are liberators, economic liberators. Can you at least give us a brief on how you're going to do it for us? And then I've got a last question to ANC. I'm coming back to the issue of backrooms. We were born and bred in Messina, some of us. We were surviving through those backrooms.
Okay.
Because in Messina, people were not earning. Please do something quickly about it.
Okay.
Because this is our bread and butter. But if you want to take it from us, we're going to revolt against you.
Thank you very much, sir. Before we come back to you, there are some voice notes that I'd like us to play, and then we'll come to you. Please answer the question in 20 seconds.
I think the first thing that must be done is to make sure that Department of Public Works and the Defense, they appoint the contractor who's supposed to erect the wall or a fence to make sure that we have a proper border where people cannot just walk in. Number two, as Economic Liberators Forum South Africa, we prioritize South Africans. And we are saying all those who are illegal, they must go back. If they want to come in, they must follow proper processes.
All right. Before we come to the gentleman of the EFF and the ANC for the final questions, because we're chasing time, let's take some of the listeners' voice notes because they're joining us as well for this conversation. We will come to your questions, sir. I'm saying please bear with us. We'd like to take some voice notes.
Good afternoon, Sister Bongiwe. It's Fred the Trucker here in Western Cape. Sister Bongiwe, all those political parties that are there, have they ever thought of coming together and become one thing? Instead of criticizing each other, talking bad about each other, have they ever thought that the main aim is to give service to the people of this country? Have they ever thought of that? Instead of their own, gains and, what they get out of politics. Have they ever thought of the people of this country?
Bongiwe, it's Brian Mabai from Protea Glen. Yeah, politicians can talk. I'm listening to those panel, whatever they are saying about us and the government. But Bongiwe, all politicians in South Africa must be vetted. It's either a new political party or older parties. We can't be ruled by criminals. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Bongiwe. It's Edward. Most of your guests, their main campaign is on migrants, but they are not coming up with solutions on what they are going to do with the migrants who are already in South Africa. Right now, the government is on a page of undocumenting the documented migrants like ZEP, but no one is coming up with the solution on what they are going to do with those migrants.
Like what you hear? Enjoy more of your favorite
briefly, and we will then be giving our panelists as well a time to close the debate, so they need to have time for their closing remarks. So your quick question. Sir, if you can, we are coming to you. Can you give him a chance? We've given you a chance. They are also here represented, and they have a right to ask the question.
Thank you, Bongiwe. Well, my question is addressed to Commissar Mapaulo. Scientific evidence has shown that since 1994, the question is addressed to Commissar Mapaulo. Scientific evidence has shown that
we manufacture whatever we produce from the mine, so that the final product which goes out is manufactured by South Africa. And another thing, we'll do away with all the tenders and employ competent South African youth. And in my closing remarks, first thing that we're going to do as the EFF government, we're going to make sure we demolish all the illegal dams, all the illegal catchments in all the farms of the whites, and make sure that the streams of our water are flowing and the rivers. And also the other issue that we'll be doing, we're going to do away with the provincial government.
Your minute is
we're
up.
going to do away with the deputy ministers and everything, and make sure that people get work.
Thank you, Lawrence Stierhoff.
Norman, thank you very much, Bongi. The reality is that our country is in churches, and to deal with the issues that we have in our society, we need real pragmatic policy positions that will deal with the issues that we have in society. Part of those issues have to do with indeed growing the business sector in the country, so we can create employment, given that businesses are the fundamental creators of jobs. Secondly, capacitating our police, our military, to ensure the safety of the people of our country. Thirdly, insourcing security personnel as well as cleaners to ensure that they have better wages, better job benefits, but as well we cut the hand of comrades stealing through the tender system. Fourthly, we must fix ESCOM, while at the same time freeing the electricity market, so more independent business people can come into the industry and produce electricity. Bring in companies that will be able to compete with ESCOM in itself.
Your time is up. Let's move on, Sarah.
Thank you, Bongiwe. As Sarah, this is what we're going to do to you as South Africans. With no doubt, we're going to invite direct foreign investment so that we can grow the economy. We're going to create a 24-hour economy so that no one is left out of the economic system. We're going to denationalize the public sector, the public enterprises, and denationalize them. In that way, we'll make sure jobs are created and retained. We'll create business-friendly policy so that businesses can come in that create jobs. We're gonna encourage public and private sector partnership, so that in that way jobs are created, maintained, and as we go on.
All right, your minute is up. Let's move on to ANC.
Thank you very much. As the African National Congress, all our members who will be going to Parliament and legislatures have gone through the vetting process. And we want to indicate that we are more than ready to create 2.5 million jobs through presidential employment stimulus, addressing unemployment through various interventions such as infrastructure development, agriculture and community services. We will increase support for small enterprise, entrepreneurs and cooperatives, and also funding to civil society through non-profit organizations. And as the African National Congress, we will also tackle high cost of living, making sure that we put steps to make everyday life affordable for workers, unemployed, women-headed households and middle class by addressing key needs such as food, health, care, energy, housing, transport. And one other issue that we are going to focus on will be agricultural support programs,
The minute is up. The minute is up. The minute is
revitalization
up
of
for the
agriculture
ANC.
and agro-value.
The minute is up. Rise Mzansi.
Thank you, Wogi, for us, realistically, for the past 30 years, South Africans have lived on the question of hopes and promises from the ruling party, which have not resulted into anything. And the solutions that we are proposing is that we bring an end to cadre deployment, which has led into the West amongst us a system of aristocracy where people are employed in government positions. And as Rise Mzansi were saying, that South Africa deserves new leaders, and these new leaders are pragmatic and very bold in the sense of that trying to smash capitalist system that we are facing in our country, and also overall making sure that the ruling party, which has lost all sense of moral compass, in which every week we keep hearing allegations of corruption where even top leaders are getting arrested each and every week, should be removed from office and replaced with new, capable and competent leaders.
All right, your minute is
Thank
up.
you.
Thank you. Economic Liberators.
Thank you very much. As Economic Liberators Forum, the first thing we're going to do is to make sure we deal with the issue of state capacity. The first thing we're going to do skills audit to make sure that anyone who does not meet the requirement, they must be released from their post. Our second issue is the usage of land. What we're saying currently, we have land that is owned by tribal authority, we have land that is owned by the state that is currently idling that we are not using. So we're saying, as much as we advocate for we advocate that we must get our land back, but the land that we currently own, we must be able to use it. We are going to advocate for the transformation of the educational system, because the current educational system does not serve our interest. In terms of accountability, anyone who takes back money from treasurer, they must be released from their responsibilities. And everything that we do, we are going to prioritize South African first. There must not be any sector that is dominated by foreigners. We are going to prioritize
All right,
South
your minute
African
is
first.
up. Democratic Alliance.
Thank you. I think the situation is very clear. You cannot create jobs without investment in development and infrastructure. No basic services, no investment. No investment, no jobs. The DA will immediately bring the expertise in to fix the water infrastructure, correct it, and break up Eskom so it becomes more effective and competitive. So we can attract investment, which will create jobs. We will devolve policing to the provinces, provide specialized units to deal with migration, drugs and gangs. We will increase the grants to avoid poverty and introduce an extra grant specifically for pregnant women to ensure healthier babies. And as for the borders, we will introduce technology which is working for us in Cape Town, especially in terms of drones and overhead monitoring that will protect our
All
borders
right, your
and
minute is up.
protect our
Let me
people.
thank you. Your minute is up. Let me thank you all for your time. I just wish we had the whole day for us to be able to do this, but time is always of the essence. So thank you so much to the political parties who were represented, the EFF, Action SA, SARA, ANC, Rise Mzansi, ELF SA, as well as the Democratic Alliance. You can also catch the next election debate that is going to be taking place as well with the political parties on Zwamaramani on Parapara FM between 17:30, that is 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. tonight. So there is, of course, still another round of this debate for the listeners to be able to then partake. So thank you so much for keeping us company. We're coming to you live from the Mansfield Multipurpose Center. It's still the mood, of course, as you can hear, the political parties simply not letting up. But from us, it's have yourselves a good afternoon. The news